afternoon. I'm Grace White here in the Channel 11 newsroom. It is Monday, September 2nd and Labor Day. Here's some of the stories we're following this afternoon. We just heard moments ago from officials out in West Texas. We have the latest information on the weekend shooting in the Midland and Odessa area. They told us the gunman had some sort of dispute the morning of the shooting with his employer and was actually terminated that morning. We also learned the gunman called the national tip line 15 minutes before the shooting started. Officials told us when we asked about the nature of his call that there were no threats, specific threats he made on that phone call to the tip line. There were just rambling injustices again from this gunman 15 minutes before the shooting started. The officer, we're told, who pulled him over in the Midland Odessa area had no idea that any of that had transpired. So they had no idea that he had called the tip line, that he had the dispute with his employer. And so that officer again made that traffic stop not knowing what had happened. Investigators also updated us on the search of the gunman's property. They said they completed those searches and they described it as this gunman on a downward spiral, that the things they found on his property were reflective of his mental state at the time. Again, they described that as a man on a downward spiral. That had been something had been leading up to the shooting. They said this is not a man who just woke up Saturday and decided to do this. They described him as somebody who was on a path or a downward spiral. So again, the shooting happened Saturday around 3 o'clock. It happened on a highway, Interstate 20 between Midland and Odessa. Two DPS troopers tried to pull this man over. He was in a gold Honda, but he pointed a rifle out the back window and just started shooting. He hit one of the troopers, drove away, ended up hitting other innocent people. We know 8 people were killed, ages 15 to 57, another 22 injured, including a toddler. We'll be updating you on that toddler story today in our 4 o'clock newscast, but we're choosing not to name the gunman and to focus on the victims and the information that is still developing at this hour. We want to switch now to some consumer news that we're following this afternoon as well. 2 big box stores are offering trade-in deals for car seats. Target starts tomorrow and runs through September 14th. So here's how it works. If you bring a car seat in to guest services, you'll get a 20% coupon or 20% off coupon for a new car seat or a stroller. And yes, if you're wondering, you can bring in a damaged or expired car seat for trade-in as well. The next week, Walmart will also have a trade-in deal too. They're giving away a $30 Walmart gift card for anything in the store. Walmart's trade-in starts September 16th and goes through the end of the month. We also want to talk Dorian for you this afternoon. Everybody's watching that hurricane off the coast of Florida, and our Erica Lopez is keeping a close eye on it as well. It swept through the Bahamas overnight, was a Category 5, if I'm right, Erica, then slightly weakened. It's now a Category 4. Erica, what can you tell us about where this hurricane is heading?
Yeah, a very strong still Category 4 storm. I have to emphasize that, though. Don't get too focused on the actual category number because this storm is so slow moving. So we're talking sustained winds now at 150 miles an hour. All right, mic good? Sorry, a little technical difficulty. Just want to make sure you guys hear before I get in the forecast. Okay, so here's where the storm is right now. Still moving very, very slow at 1 mile an hour over the Grand Bahama Island, but I want to show you the latest couple of scans on satellite this moment. It's finally taken a northwestern and we may be starting to see a little bit of just a northerly trend. This is good news. We've been waiting for this for a few days now, as a matter of fact, because the quicker this storm turned to the north, then that's better for the state of Florida, because the further it was going inland west, then we're talking more damaging conditions. Primary threats for the coastal areas of Florida still, storm surge, and also, sorry, I'm gonna lower this so I can focus here a little bit better. Storm surge and also some hurricane force winds possible for the further coastal areas, and we're talking tropical storm force winds likely. So This storm has just been pounding for the last 48 hours the Bahama Islands, and at the moment it continues to bring them some very devastating conditions. So let's look at the latest stats right now coming in from the National Hurricane Center. Wind speeds 150 miles an hour, sustained winds. We're still talking gusts stronger than that. Again, moving at 1 mile an hour. Finally, a west-northwest movement. Pressure is increasing now at 938 millibars. Now, whenever that number increases, if you have been with us throughout the last 24 hours, that pressure was in the low 900s. But whenever this number gets bigger, that's better, because that means the storm is weakening, okay? At least in terms of wind speeds. It is still a very devastating storm. And check out how close it is to Florida. Can you imagine being in West Palm Beach right now, knowing that the eye of a Category 4 hurricane is 100 miles east of you, and you have to have faith that all of the forecast models are correct about this, and it's going to continue to push it north. So that is a very stressful situation, not only for West Palm Beach, but also for folks all across the eastern seaboard. Because check this out, the latest forecast cone does keep this as a Category 4 major hurricane through tomorrow, through Wednesday, weakening possibly to a Category 3. Guys, that is still a major hurricane, and we're talking still pretty slow movement from Tuesday into Wednesday, still riding along the Florida coast. By, I would say, Wednesday afternoon, we may be pushing into the Georgia region, and that's where folks will start to feel tropical storm force winds and possibly some storm surge for coastal areas of Georgia. So we're in for 48 hours of Florida feeling the impacts because of this system. Then it's going to speed up, okay? Then we're talking about the Carolinas feeling some of this impact and also kicking out into the Atlantic by late this week. So we have a very long week ahead of us that we'll be tracking Dorian. So again, I want to focus on the fact that even though we're not expecting this storm to make landfall on Florida, we're still going to feel the impacts right now. Here's a look at tropical storm force winds, 50-mile-an-hour winds. We need wind speeds of 39 miles an hour or greater in order for that to be tropical storm force winds. And we're having 50-mile-an-hour sustained winds for Palm Beach. This is tomorrow morning. Then that's continue to ride up. We're at Wednesday about midnight or so. Even folks in central Florida, Orlando, may be feeling some pretty strong winds out there. And then that's going to continue to funnel up. We'll finally start to get a break for southern Florida rolling into Thursday, Friday. Then we're tracking it for Georgia and the Carolinas. Okay, so all of the models are finally in agreement at the moment that it is going to stay off the coast of Florida. But again, that's just the eye. This storm is several hundred miles wide, so we will still feel the impacts for the coastal areas of Florida. Okay, not only are we talking about Hurricane Dorian, check out how busy the Atlantic is right now. Peak hurricane season still September 10th, and we're definitely on the active side, but nothing that's really of concern for us here in Texas. Several disturbances, one off the coast of Africa, 90% chance of development in the next 5 days, 50% chance of development in the next 5 days for this disturbance right here. Those two are traveling north, and as of right now, not really a threat to anyone. There is a tropical disturbance out in the Gulf of Mexico, which I haven't focused in a lot. I have mentioned it throughout the weekend, and also I've been talking about it throughout today, but the reason why we shouldn't be too worried about it is because it's traveling west. Okay, so we're not going to feel actually anything at all from this, minus southern Texas. They're going to have an increase in Gulf moisture because of this, but as it continues to push west, what's blocking it from traveling north is what's bringing us all this heat. A ridge of high pressure is building in. So if you didn't know, yesterday triple-digit temperatures returned for us here in central Texas, or in southeast Texas, excuse me, and triple-digit temperatures are going to hang around through the majority of the week. Even though in Houston at Bush, we may record upper 90s today, there are going to be pockets around the viewing area that will see 100-degree temperatures again. Thursday, check this out, the ridge of high pressure encompasses almost the entire state of Texas. So it is bringing in the heat for the first full week of September, and it's going to be a hot one. But it does bring in some slightly drier air, so there's a little benefit with that. Right now, dew points are in the 60s. At one point over the weekend, dew points were in the 50s. So that's why it hasn't been too oppressively hot. It's been slightly drier than what we've had throughout most of the summer, thanks to a north-northeast wind at 13 miles an hour right now. So enjoy that if you're out and about for your Labor Day. Right now feels like temperatures aren't that excessive compared to the actual temperature, again, because of the slightly drier air out there. Okay, so I'm going to have more on the forecast and updated forecast cone at 4 p.m. on the 411, so make sure to tune in. But for now, I'm going to toss things back to Grace.
All right, thank you, Erica. That does it for us. We'll have much more on Dorian and the West Texas shooting today at 4 o'clock. We'll see you then.